That might have been the best shot of the entire show. During really the third, leaping into battle against the Balrog. Yeah, do you think what he did was actually brave, or was it more cowardly? Because he was just like, oh, I messed up. I'm not going to own up to any of this. See ya.
Only because we know how it turns out, you might actually be right.
Hello, and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
And today we are talking about Rings of Power Season 2. We have crossed the threshold, we are over the finale, and we're going over all of the madness that is happening in Middle-earth. But before we get to that today, Nick, how you doing, man? You look good.
Thank you. Not as good as you, but we're trying. We're trying.
Stop. We're actually not this nice to each other usually.
Yeah,
it's really only an on-camera thing.
We strongly dislike each other in real life.
Strongly.
I'm doing well. I cannot stop thinking about the finale of Rings of Power Season 2. It's well, we're gonna get into it, but it has been living rent-free in my head for about 3 or 4 days. So it's just an absolute insane spectacle. Yeah, that's how I'm doing.
You're stuck in Middle-earth.
I'm stuck.
I don't blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you. There are, as horrible as Middle-earth can be, there are times where I'm like, it doesn't look so bad.
Well, I don't know if I had that thought at all during this episode, but
not this episode. No, definitely not. But like as you point out, this really was a spectacle, and we've had a lot of spectacle going on in TV, in streaming recently, with Agatha, and I believe the 4th episode just coming out, and man, that was so fun. That show is so fun.
Yeah.
I'm having such a great time with it.
That show was a perfect amount of fun and like spooky for this time of year too. It's just like a joy to watch, and not all the MCU TV series have been like that. And I was just like, it's such a joy and so well done that I found myself thinking, why have they not done, like, how come they've put products like Secret Invasion on there?
Oh, shots fired.
Well, because it just wasn't very good, but then you get something like Agatha.
That was generous.
Yeah, you get something like Agatha all along. You're like, this is fantastic. Like, this is what the MCU is good at. And it just kind of makes you question some of the things they've done that weren't good. But overall, spooky, fun. Check it out.
Honestly, I mean, you could do an entire episode on just the MCU post Endgame and like why it probably isn't firing on all cylinders all the time, right? But yeah, I agree. I wish more of their products were like this, right? It's where, or at least like the TV streaming stuff, right? Where you can just put it on, just have a good time, right? The Down the Witch's Road song that we got in that episode, super cool.
Yep.
Loved that. Little curse demon that flies in, that was super creepy.
Yeah.
Loved that.
Really ugly.
Yeah. We will have our own Agatha episode at some point. Well, not some point, when it's done. But yeah, just we're having a great time. If you want to keep up with us and our thoughts on Agatha as it is coming out, follow us on Threads at May the Review Be With You, and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, please. And hit that bell. It helps us out so very much. But let's get into Rings of Power. Okay, Nick. So we're done. We're done with season 2 of Rings of Power.
Crazy.
It was a lot in 8 episodes. It honestly kind of felt like its own like trilogy of movies at times. And we have so many different storylines, many of them all kind of coalescing in this episode. And just, you were talking earlier about how this is living rent-free in your head. Where are you in the wake of all of this?
I am mentally just, I'm still blown away at like the insane scope of that finale and the amount of like story completion / story like just continuing, like the build up that we got, right? We got a lot of resolution, but we also got a lot of setup for the next season already from like each different section of Middle Earth, if you will, right? Like the fact that the episode started off with the dwarves and Khazad-dûm, like that was just such an insane way to start the episode. Like my jaw's on the floor the rest of it, you know? It's like, this is how we're starting the last episode. Like, this is insane. So I'm just still mentally just not recovered, I think, from the finale. It was fantastic. That might be the best episode they've done yet, which is insane to say because there's been some really good episodes.
I would agree with that. I think where I'm at with this particular episode, I think it was one of its strongest episodes. I don't think I'm as like hot on this show overall as you are right now. And we'll definitely talk more about that toward the end of this. There are things about this show that I love. There are things about this show that I like scratch my head at. Overall, I think it's a good show. I think it's a good show, and it makes me mad that it could be a great show, and there are things that hold it back. But again, save that for the end. Let's start off. Nick, you brought up Khazad-dûm, and the very strong, easily the strongest intro that they've ever had in any episode, with during the third and during the fourth. And during the third, breaking open that wall of the mountain, only to discover this like huge canyon of mithril. It's kind of mind-boggling. I actually, for a moment, I thought we weren't going to see anything back there. Like the ring had deceived him all this time.
Oh, I didn't have that thought. I thought it was. I didn't have that thought just because they kind of had hinted at something else being. I mean, and we also know something else is in the mountain, right? So I guess it's kind of like it was kind of hard to not think that we're about to just see this, terror be unleashed, if you will, right?
The Belrog.
The Belrog, exactly. So
okay, so this, all right. So like you said, this was a banger way to start, and this is something they have been teasing since the first season, that we were going to get a Belrog at some point, that this is the Belrog that Gandalf defeats in Fellowship. We were going to see him, and we finally got there, and he was glorious.
Yeah.
Shadow and fire.
Magnificent scene, right? And then when King Doran just takes the leap of faith, like says goodbye and just swings his axe, and it meets the Balrog's flame. Like, what a freaking cinematic masterpiece! Like, so cool.
That might have been the best shot of the entire show. During the third, leaping into battle against the Belrog.
And taking the ring off right before too, right? Just like finally his mind is free and realizes he's made a huge mistake. And of course we know that like he doesn't completely right his wrong there because having the privilege of knowing what happens kind of later on, we know that he did not win that battle. But
yeah, do you think what he did was actually brave, or was it more cowardly? Because he was just like, oh, I messed up. I'm not going to own up to any of this. See ya.
Only because we know how it turns out, you might actually be right.
I mean, like, maybe he could see the future. With the ring, he was like, oh, this goes really poorly if I stick around. All right, son. You're king now. Have fun with that.
Oh, man. Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, I think the dwarf storyline in this season was probably my favorite.
Yeah.
It's also got the best character work.
Same.
Between Durin, his father, Durin's wife. And it was, I don't know, like, I was legitimately, like, kind of, I was touched, like when Durin is telling the story of like him and his father like arm wrestling, right? And he's like, there was no one stronger than my father, and then for like that to come back and have the final words of Durin the Third be like, I never like let you get close to winning, like you were pushing because like you were always getting stronger. That was cool. That was a nice like final note to like leave on before shit hits the fan. I want to talk everything about Khazad-dûm while we're still here. We have so many other stories to cover. so toward the end of this episode, we get back to Khazad-dûm, and we see that Durin and company have escaped from the Balrog, who, as you point out, Nick, will return at some point. That was something I was actually a little scared about, that the Balrog was just going to wreak havoc and it was going to be like a one and done sort of situation. It's not. There is promise that this thing is going to return, unfortunately. And we get this story about how the dwarves are coming to pay the tribute that they promised King Durin III that they were going to do for the Rings of Power. And it seems as though there will be some inner turmoil under the Misty Mountains very soon.
Yeah, might have a little political turmoil for who the rightful heir of the throne is coming up here, set up for season 3, which, I guess makes some sense. Makes it a little bit more exciting, I guess, from a world building perspective there for the dwarves. So we'll see what happens there. And so many, I'm so intrigued with what's going to happen with all the dwarven rings. I'm really intrigued to see how that storyline goes, right? Because those we know clearly infected by Sauron. It's not good. It's a situation for the dwarves, right? And we know that they definitely doesn't end well for them in the long term. So I'm really interested to see what new storylines come out. And we're about to meet other dwarven civilizations, essentially, right? In season 3, it essentially is what they're setting up for, right? We've kind of we had a piece here in season 2 with some of the other dwarven lords or kings, if you will, but we're probably going to actually get to meet a lot more of them this time. So that'll be kind of a cool world to explore further.
Agreed. Very much looking forward to dwarf politics next season. The promise of that will be. So yeah, more to look out there. I guess a next logical place to go here is Eregion, where most of the story is pretty concentrated, right?
Yeah.
This is where the biggest chaos is happening. This is where Sauron is. This is where a lot of our main characters are. And let's start with Sauron. Sauron, when we first see him, he's with Celebrimbor, right? And he's got Celebrimbor pinned up against the wall. He wants to know, what'd you do with my 9 rings, man?
Yep. The scene with Celebrimbor and Sauron is such a tragedy for Celebrimbor, the great Elven Smith, as Galadriel keeps calling him. That's all I kept thinking. Just what a tragedy this man's end of his life became, being manipulated by Sauron to create these extremely powerful things that will end up destroying Middle Earth and then in turn mentally and physically destroying him. Really sad, but also incredible acting work by both of them. Just unbelievable. There's some really cool parts there too, right? With him, and we get, maybe it's a little bit of a cheesy line calling Sauron the Lord of the Rings. That's they've done that a couple of times this season. I'm just when that happened, I was like, oh, Joe hates this. Joe's gonna hate that moment. Sauron, the Lord of the Rings.
I loved that scene, and right before he said it, I was like, "Don't you do it! Don't you do it! Don't say it again!" And then he did it, and it was like, "I hate you. I'm glad you're dying." Winks at camera.
Oh my god!
What are we? Some kind of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
You're right. The acting in that scene is phenomenal. I had to look up the actor. Thank you for bringing this up. Charlie Vickers plays the man with many names, Sauron. And man, he is so compelling. How he's able to have this stoic face, and then at the same time bring on sadness with that one single tear, right?
Yeah.
As Sauron. All right, let me ask you this. All right, so Sauron. Celebrimbor gets him to cry, and I wasn't sure if Sauron is crying because there's a part of him that agrees with Celebrimbor, who says you are a prisoner of the rings, you are not their master, right? That you're a slave to power is basically what he's saying. Or is he crying because in his eyes, Celebrimbor has done this to himself, and he's dying, and with that great knowledge and artistry is also leaving this world.
I almost lean more on like the fact that he did kind of maybe come to at least appreciate the artistry and what he can do, what Celebrimbor can do. And so there's a part of him that's a little bit sad that he's watching this like great elven, lord, like essentially break down and leave this world. Although it's a little weird that he's sad about it since he's the one who did it. It's like Sauron's like so manipulative, man. It's insane,
Well, Celebrimbor says that, right? And I think it's the episode before. He's like, "Wow, you're so great at deceiving. You can even deceive yourself."
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. He's just deceived himself to thinking he actually cares about him for a split moment. So creepy, But such a cool scene there. And I love Sauron's like, anytime someone asks him who he is, like, "Are you Sauron? I have many names." He just like what a thing, Such a good smirk too when he's looking at things the orcs that ask him when they walk in after after Celebrimbor's been killed. Man.
Yeah, absolutely savage. I don't think that this will be the last time we see Celebrimbor. I think they set it up very subtly.
There are ways of keeping you alive. Must I show you my mastery of that craft as well?
And then later in the episode, when Sauron stabs Galadriel with the crown of Morgoth, she's being healed by Gil-galad and Elrond.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying that the darkness is spreading inside of her, and it's threatening to drag her immortal soul into the Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
So that's
insert Yu-Gi-Oh reference here.
Right.
It's time to
I am told that Shadow of Mordor is that's a video game that came out like 10, 12 years ago. And I am told that is canon. And Celebrimbor is in that game. I won't say in what form. It's way after all of this. So, I mean, if they are respecting that canonology, we will see him again. But perhaps differently. So something to look forward to there.
Interesting.
But keeping the story focused on Eregion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's transition to the orcs. You brought them up earlier, Nick.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good segue here. How the orcs, Glug. I had to look up his name. The only orc that we've come to know.
Mm-hmm.
Which too bad because he's dead now.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Oh, he had a wife and a kid.
Yeah.
He meets Sauron, and we don't get to see it happen. But we come to know that he becomes manipulated by Sauron, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next time we see Gluk, he's in the forest greeting Andar. But before they meet, Andar and Galadriel get to have a conversation.
Yeah, we see Adar looking very young and very old school elven because he's got the ring on that he got from Elrond.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like de-aging him, or not de-aging him, like healing him, I guess, from all of his wounds and all of the things he's gone through for the however many years it's been.
It returned him to a fairer form.
Yeah, very cool scene. Especially like after they have their conversation and he takes off the ring, this transition slowly back to his normal form was really, really a cool shot, I thought. And then, of course, I don't know if you want to talk about their conversation at all, but
yes, I do. I want to talk about all of it, Nick.
All right, I'm listening.
So, this turns into an alliance that had been teased in previous episodes, and the way that alliance had been offered up before, it came off as very, I'm going to use you, and when I do, I'm going to get what I want, and I'm going to get all of this power, right? Whereas this time, the proposed alliance comes off very differently, and it feels as though like the ring actually like helped clarify his like thoughts on it. He's like, I actually don't want power. He doesn't, right? Like there's a great image, right? A great allegory of like he literally gives up power. He takes the ring of power off and he gives it back to Galadriel. He clearly like, he's interested in being a leader, but like in receiving more power, that's not his MO. He just wants to take his children back to Mordor where they can live peacefully, and like that's all he's honest, right? Like we weren't clear if he was being deceitful about that in the past, or if like the whole family thing was just a way of controlling the orcs, and maybe it is, but there is a part of that that's honest, right? Like he does care about them. And then well
yeah, Sauron gets to them, and very beautiful symbolism there too on how they kill him, because that's exactly how they killed Sauron many ages ago. If you remember at the beginning of the season, when we get a flashback to Sauron before his form that we know now, he was being fake crowned by Adar, and then instead stabbed, and then all the orcs were repeatedly stabbing Sauron standing over the top of him at the beginning. And this is, of course, the same way that Adar goes out. So I thought that was kind of a brutal and sad way for him to go, but I'm sure it seems like Sauron was like, you have to kill him the same way that he killed me, basically.
Oh yeah, no.
This is brutal.
It is definitely like the pettiest thing.
Yeah,
like
such a petty way. Such a petty way to go.
It's like the ultimate clapback. Like as he was laying there dying, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you back so bad. It may take hundreds of years, but man, roles are gonna be reversed. It's gonna be sweet, my friend. Don't get too comfy on my throne."
That was so petty. I just wrote that down too.
Petty.
So petty. So funny.
He's such a little bitch.
Shit.
No, that was great. It was sad. Honestly, I felt bad for Adar when he's watching the orcs brutally kill him. And yeah, Galadriel and Sauron end up getting into this pretty epic sword fight. Sauron takes on different forms. He takes on the form of Celebrimbor, Galadriel herself, Halbrand.
Yeah,
we got to see Halbrand return.
Yeah,
briefly. And eventually, toward the end of this fight, Sauron is mostly successful. I think it's fair to say, right?
Yeah.
Like he gets 9 of the rings. He just doesn't get Galadriel's.
Right.
Yeah.
He gets 9 of the rings, which he didn't want Galadriel's, really. I mean, he did, but like the main thing for him was to get the rings for the men, because they made the elven rings for the elves, and they made the dwarven rings for the dwarves, and so for him, he needs the 9 rings for man to go to the men. So he needed those the most, and he stabs Galadriel. He stabs Galadriel with Morgoth's crown, which the fight choreography with the crown was fantastic. Like such cool fight choreography in that scene. That was cool. That whole scene was like really cool. And yeah, he's successful. He gets the rings. And Galadriel, I thought that this was going to be the moment where Galadriel, like, I thought she was going to, like, go to the Shadow Realm or whatever, or, but, because I'm not super familiar with how she gets from where she is now to where she is in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, very cool.
Thanks for saying that, because, like, I forgot. There was one moment in the fight with Sauron and Galadriel that was a neat, like, call out to Fellowship of the Ring, where he says, like, I would have made you a queen, where all the inhabitants of Middle Earth would bask in your light, and that felt like that was like a reference to Fellowship when Frodo offers Galadriel the ring, and she like turns into like something. She's still beautiful, but in a horrible way.
In place of a dark lord, you would have a queen! Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn! Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth!
It felt very much like that's a callback to that, or I guess a call forward in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was neat. That was the first thing I thought of as he was saying it. And I was like, oh yeah, that would be something. We see Galadriel fall off the cliff. I think it's a Randir who with his eagle eye vision like spots the jelly bean from like
the jelly bean
yards. That's what it looks like. It looks like a jelly bean just falling. It's like he's looking at her and he's like, "That's Galadriel." And I'm like, I know elves have great like eyesight, but that's wild.
Yeah. I love Arandir too. He's so good, and I'm glad that he didn't die.
He's a homie. He's great.
Yeah, he's so cool. He's so fun. The Legolas of Rings of Power, basically, is what online is dubbing him. You know,
who wins in a fight, Arandir or Legolas?
Arandir.
See, it's funny. I think right now, I think it's Legolas. All right, this is why, since you didn't ask. Okay, so I think it's the episode before, right? Arandir has like the takedown of the troll, right? The mountain troll. It takes him down. I think he had help though with Gil-galad.
I already know what you're thinking. You're talking about we're talking Return of the King.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. You're right. Legolas. Legolas wins. Legolas, you're right. I stand corrected. You're absolutely correct.
He did it all by himself.
Yeah. God, I have to go watch Return of the King now. That scene's magnificent.
It is. It's magnificent. It still only counts as one, though.
Yeah, still only counts as one.
I am waiting for an amazing takedown like that with Arandir, because you're right. He is the Legolas of this show, and I feel like at some point or another, they're gonna give him something like crazy to take down. They can't do it too early in the show, right? It'll happen later. And when that does happen, the nerds of the internet will lose their mind and they'll hate it. Mind. And I don't care because I'm here for it. I want to see Arandir do more cool shit. Galadriel is saved by Elrond, I always forget his dad's name, Gil-galad, and Arandir, and they escape. All the elves escape to a valley north of the city, which that was very fun. It had not occurred to me that Rivendell does not exist yet in this time, and this is the beginning of Rivendell, which has not been named yet or created, but here we are, and we get the question on whether or not they will operate as the sword or the shield, and it ends with Gil-galad proclaiming, "We're gonna fight. We're gonna take them down." That's ultimately where the show ends. What do you think of, where we leave the elves here?
Like, they got their butts whooped.
Yeah.
And now they're like in Rivendell, or what will become Rivendell, and they've chosen to fight. But like, and that's great, right? The sun came up, everyone's like, okay, we made it, we're alive, we're gonna fight. But now the real work begins, and now you actually have to. And so far, no one's had an answer for Sauron, and we also know that they don't have one. They don't have an answer for him for a very long time. So it's kind of tough to, I guess, be super confident in what's ahead for them, because it takes a while, right? But it's still interesting. It's still interesting to find out like how we get from where they are now to what happens in Fellowship of the Ring, right? Like, there's so much journey in the middle. So I'm excited for that.
Very much so. Yeah, a lot of journey. A lot of walking. Much walking coming up. Let's transition away from Rivendell, away from Eregion, which I guess doesn't exist anymore, and to the canyon, where Gandalf is meeting with the Stewards and the Dark Wizard and the Dark Wizard's bandits. This scene is weird to me. It's so weird. The stranger, sorry, I said Gandalf.
Yes, you did.
Oops, spoilers. The stranger arrives in the canyon, and he's greeted by the Dark Wizard. And the Dark Wizard's like, "Oh yeah, you're here for your homies, right? Like, Nori? Like, yeah, I know your homies. Like, hey, bring the homies out." And the bandits got Nori with like a knife on her neck, and the stranger's like, "Yo, what?" And the Dark Wizard's like, "Yo, what?"
Yeah, it's so weird.
I thought These nomads might help me find you. I see now I was foolish.
So weird. Like a...
Like, I can't take the wizard that seriously if, like, he doesn't have, like, he doesn't seem all that threatening. It's like, is he supposed to be bumbling? Because, like, he feels a little bumbling right now. Mm-hmm. Unless it was all, like, going to be a show of power. Like, and, like, he was thinking 2 steps ahead, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and it's going to be awesome. I'm going to look like a hero. I don't think that's what that is. That felt a little sloppy to me. Like, it felt like rushed storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we need to...
The store stuff and Hobbit stuff it felt a little rushed and sloppy for sure. But that's just because they really just wanted to get us to Gandalf. I mean, the Grand Elf finding his staff, or the staff finding him rather, and some more Bombadil on screen, which is such a treat.
Yay.
That's really the key, right? Of this little area that we were in here during this episode. Getting the Bombadil.
Old Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
He's a merry fellow.
Got the song.
Dude.
So cool.
That was so great. I love that song. Oh, that was... we're jumping ahead here, but, like, right. Yeah, the Tom Bombadil stuff, it was just so fun toward the end.
Well, that was awesome, too, right? Because, like, in many ways, we knew that, like, you know, Gandalf was... The stranger was never going to choose, like... We don't... You want him to choose his friends, right? Like, you know he's supposed to choose his friends. And, of course, he's realizing it. And then, of course, the staff finds him, which is such a cool little moment there, of course. And so... I
mean, it's neat that I think that there are times when, to me, like personally, that this show doesn't sound very Tolkienian, right? Mm-hmm. But there are times where clearly they do remember, or they have learned from the original story, and they are trying their best to, like, keep the heart of that. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the most important themes of Lord of the Rings, like in general, is that power corrupts absolutely. Power is inherently evil, and the only thing that defeats power is friendship, is mercy, right? And it doesn't defeat it by overpowering it, because you can't overpower power. Mm-hmm. But in the long run, mercy and you know, the kindness that we make along the way, like, it works in invisible ways that undoes power. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was neat to see that being reinforced in the stranger, who eventually decides that he will be called Gandalf.
Yeah.
People will call him Gandalf. They're going to call him
Yeah,
Gandalf.
They start calling him Grand Elf, and I'm like, okay, well, obviously... I mean, also, we see the staff. We kind of get confirmation that it's Gandalf, but then... They called him the Grand Elf, and they used that as a way for him to then pick his own name and call himself Gandalf.
I think so. Like, at first,
weird,
I
right?
Here, and at first, like, I was like, "Oh, is this gonna be like his name was Grandalf, and like
right.
It just gets like misconstrued and becomes Gandalf?"
That's what I thought they were gonna do as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of had. Does that?
Yeah. Ooh, hate
like,
that.
Ooh, no. And then he just ended up.
It's more like because they've never seen an elf before, then like they say that as a form of appreciation. They think he's one because like elves are like the super beings of
right.
the world, right? So he must be one. So I like that, like, they misidentify him, right? And in that misidentification, it's almost like either it jogged like his memory, or it like enlightened him a bit to, like, you know, what his name will eventually be, right?
Right.
One of those two.
Right.
Something about the Dark Wizard I really want to put out there. Not sold on this character at all. He just feels not threatening to me yet, and it's mostly because, like, I guess he just didn't understand, like, his relationship with the bandits for some weird reason.
I see now I was foolish.
But there was a lot of talk about who this character was, similar to the stranger, right? It's like, well, who is the stranger? Is it going to be? It's most likely Gandalf, but we don't know yet. We got confirmation on that, and we sort of got a confirmation on who the Dark Wizard probably is. So we're told in Lord of the Rings that there were 5 wizards who came to Middle-earth, a gray, a brown, and a white, and 2 blues. And in The Hobbit and in Lord of the Rings, we meet 3 of those wizards. We never meet the 2 blue wizards. And there's always been a lot of mystery about those 2 guys. And it looks like this is one of the 2 blue wizards, from what he's saying. We know that the 2 blue wizards got to Middle-earth before anyone else did, and he pretty much suggested that he got there before at least Gandalf, right? But yeah, not much else there. Overall, I think this is one of the weaker storylines through and through. Not the weakest storyline, though.
Oh, that we can say for our friends of drumroll, please. Numenor.
Go to Numenor.
Joe's favorite place in all of Middle-earth.
Oh my god. It is crazy to me how much money is spent to make Numenor look awesome.
It does look awesome.
It looks awesome.
But the
so
people
good.
suck.
They're terrible. Oh, the worst people.
How mad are you that Narsil is in Numenor? How pissed are you? Are you mad?
I'm not. I'm not mad. I actually think that makes sense.
Okay.
Right? And for some reason, I completely even forgot that sword existed.
Right.
And that was coming. Right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. That it happened. Right? Because it had to happen. But do you think like the writers just don't care about Numenor?
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes it feels like they don't care.
They don't give a shit. Their whole thing is like, we need to get Elendil with Narsil out of Numenor. It doesn't matter how it happens. He just needs to survive, and also we need to make sure that Kemen is the worst character. We need to make sure people hate him more than Sauron, and so we're gonna make that happen. I can't wait for him to die. That Kemen guy. Jesus. That guy sucks.
Yeah, he's not great. Easily the worst, the most hateable character on the show, which is fantastic considering there are some hateful people on the show.
I had someone on Threads ask me if he was as bad as Joffrey, and to which I replied, "You need to go rewatch you need to go rewatch Game of Thrones." Because no way, not yet. He's getting there if he doesn't die soon, I guess, just because his stupid face is so punchable.
Great. No, Joffrey, there is a special
Joffrey's
hell.
Joffrey's way worse.
There's a special hell for Joffrey,
Joffrey's
just him.
Yeah. Anyway.
Kevin, hasn't really, that's the thing. He's a petty little bitch, too, but,
right.
He hasn't done anything,
right.
You know?
Yeah, right.
Not really. Which maybe that makes Joffrey better in the sense that at least Joffrey, did stuff.
Right.
Whereas, Kevin just sucks. He's just disgusting. But important, before we move to Kevin and in Pelargir, back in Numenor, Alfarzan. Got there. So Alfarzan, with the Palantir, discovers that Halbrand is Sauron, right? And he says that Muriel... man, I am having a hard time with some of these Numenorian names. And that's not my fault. It's because the show doesn't care about Numenor. It really doesn't. You don't spend any time with these characters. And they're like, hey, important plot thing. Okay, let's get the hell out of Numenor now. We spend 0 time getting to know them. It makes me mad. Anyway, the name I was trying to say, Muriel? Muriel, thank you. Like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Muriel, thank you. He decides that Muriel is responsible and purposely let in Sauron. So therefore, her trial with the sea serpent does not matter, and all of the faithful need to be arrested. Right. So Al is closing in on his power in Numenor, really, really tightening the grip.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we get the scene where Elendil's daughter comes to him to tell him that he needs to leave, and essentially saves him. Mm-hmm. Which, the writing sucks for that. Basically her fault, that her dad's even in this trouble, in some ways, and then she's going to try to save him in the 11th hour because she feels guilty because it's her father, and blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, whatever. But I'm excited that he's now not at Numenor because his storyline probably gets really fun here in the next season. Elendils, right? And there's obviously we have to imagine there's going to be some sort of Elendil and Isildur reunion. Although Isildur is now on the way back, and he's going to get there, and his dad's not going to be there.
Yeah, that's where we ultimately close with Numenor. This is as we said already. It's the weakest part of the show. It needs so much more time than what it gets, and it's crazy to me that they spent all of this money making Numenor look amazing, and they just don't spend the writing there. And like, I get it's a big show, I get it, but like clearly you think that there's a lot of stock in telling the story in Numenor, right? But ultimately, kind of a big nothing burger, right? Like, I don't know. It's disappointing. You brought up Isildur and Kemen over in the boat town that they're in, Pelargir,
or something, whatever it's called.
Pelargir, that sounds right. Pelargir. Thank you, Nick, for just saving me on all.
I mean, I might not be correct either, but just tell us in the comments.
Sounds right.
It sounds righter than yours, yes.
Yeah, it does. Righter indeed.
Righter. Speaking of words that aren't words.
So yeah, Kevin shows up right before Isildur has his like coming together with Theo, and Theo is like, "Hey, we're cool, man, and I respect you," and like they bro hug it out. Estrid is like, "Hey, can I like come with you, please?" And he's like, Isildur is like, "Yes, absolutely, of course." And then that doesn't happen.
Right.
But we did get a great shout out to your MVP of the show, Beric.
Oh, Beric. Absolute legend.
Absolute unit.
The savior of Middle Earth. Probably.
Who do you think carried more weight on their back, Beric or Samwise Gamgee?
Well, I think it's a little unfair to Samwise that we just put him in comparison with Beric. Beric's great. Beric's great. But Samwise brought peace.
But I can't carry you! Come on!
Sam is the true hero of the entire story.
Sam is the true hero of Lord of the Rings. Don't you fucking forget it, people.
No, don't you dare. Yeah, so ultimately, Kevin just being super petty and loves flaunting the fact that my dad is better than your dad. Just the worst. And now I really regret ending this review of the episode on Pelargir because, wow, this just more me not caring.
Yeah, it's like who cares? Like stupid little Numenor outpost that means less than Numenor, whatever. Yeah, just that story's going to pick up a lot more next season, hopefully, because there's a lot of shit going down now. So,
right, we know Sauron's he's targeting them now.
Yeah,
he's going to bring them the rings.
Right. So that's going to be interesting. Man, speaking of rings, didn't get the one ring, which we didn't think we were going to get it this season anyway.
Not yet, yeah.
So I'm assuming that's next season, right?
Considering how fast we went through all of the rings this season, yeah. I think so.
So, and I don't know if they've said how many seasons they're planning on doing. Do we know that?
I have not seen that information. I'm not sure if it's been released.
I could see 4, but I feel like 4 is probably the max, I would imagine. So.
Power. Let's see. It's a 5-season plan.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to turn into a Hobbit situation.
Gosh, I hope not.
5 seems a little long for how far we just got here with season 2. We'll see, though.
I mean, there's still a lot that has to happen, right? Like, I mean, I feel like we're still so far from Sauron becoming like what we see in the beginning of Fellowship.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And we gotta, unfortunately, we gotta watch. Well, maybe fortunately, we have to watch Numenor get obliterated. I'm looking forward.
I am actually kind of excited for that. Yeah. I want to watch all of those people, just like Kemen and Alfazar, or whatever his name is. Like, they just die. Just exit stage left, please, swiftly.
Right? Yeah. I honestly just can't wait for the water to just take that plot line away.
Yep.
It's gonna be awesome.
Agreed.
So yeah, that's basically the finale. I think I agree with you, Nick. I think ultimately this was one of its stronger episodes. But I think where like I fall like negatively on this is kind of what we've already pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think this show's greatest strength is somehow also its greatest weakness. Middle Earth is a really interesting world, and there's a lot going on in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think of the a lotness that's happening, it really bogs down the story in some places. And Numenor is one of those casualties, right? I used to care about Nori, like in the first season. I actually kind of liked Nori's story. And this season, like I don't know, I was just like, get back to Sauron.
Right.
I just didn't care.
Yeah. There was, I mean, you just can't fit it all, right? And obviously this season was about Eregion and Sauron and Celebrimbor and that setup, and the rings, of course, being crafted. So that took precedent. And so that was some of my favorite parts of season 2, right? Is the Celebrimbor storyline, and the acting there was fantastic, and that along with the dwarves and Khazad-dûm was like, those are probably my highlights for me. But definitely Numenor and some of like Nori's storyline just falling a little short on like the nitty grittiness of it, I guess. A little bit lackadaisical maybe. But it was cool that we got Bombadil, and I mean, I don't know if we're gonna see Bombadil again. Do we see Bombadil again? Do we think maybe? I don't know.
I'm assuming he's gonna at least stick around for another season or two, considering it's got a 5-season plan.
Right.
I think so. I think we're definitely gonna get Tom Bombadil again. For 2 reasons. The first being, it feels like Gandalf still has more to learn from Bombadil. And second, I don't know if you remember this, when we first meet Bombadil, when Gandalf is still a stranger and he wakes up in Bombadil's hut, he hears another voice, and the stranger asks, "Who are you talking to?" And Bombadil says, "What do you mean? I wasn't talking to anyone." And that hasn't been revealed yet. So I think there's still more to come with Bombadil. Very, very excited about that, especially the character that they are referring to there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little Easter egg of that character when they're singing the song. The last line of the song felt like that was supposed to be a shout out toward the character. But yeah, I think we will get more Bombadil. So hopefully more singing. Love it.
Nice.
Nick, you talked about your highlights. What would you say was your ultimate low light of the season?
Probably just the Numenor storyline. It's just not doing it like all these other storylines are. In the stores, and like Nori and Poppy, like that was okay. What kind of made up for it there was like anytime we went there, you knew that the next thing we were going to get was the stranger and or Gandalf or Bombadil, right? So that kind of was like made up for dealing with some of the not boringness, but just kind of the meh part of that, I guess, right? But Numenor was just kind of, and I don't even know I think it was just annoying, right? Like I hate that Al Farzan character, the Kevin character, I hate too. It's just like, and it's not like, it's just their characters are so one-sided in how they're operating that it's just like, it's just annoying that that's how they chose to go about it, you know?
Right, because they don't feel like real characters.
Yeah, they just don't feel like they have real conflict in any of the decisions they're making, which is just like, okay, it's kind of dumb.
It doesn't help that they're so far removed from like the actual plot
right.
of the show.
Right, so they're like the only ones not affected by everything else going on. yet.
Right.
They're still in their own little world, dealing with their own little minute political BS, that is about to be like, oh, this is what were we complaining about? We've got bigger problems now, very, very quickly. So anyway, what about you?
I mean, to piggyback off of what you were saying earlier about Joffrey, Joffrey is a horrible monster of a character, but he was compelling to have on screen because he was a character, right? He wasn't like a trope. There was something interesting about the way Joffrey worked, and that we only got to understand that because we spent time with Joffrey, right? And yeah, pretty much all the Numenorian characters, like, they're all tropes. It's like the hero's dad, the Alfrazan is the bad guy, and he's just bad.
Yeah.
What the hell happened to the eagle? Like, did the eagle just show up and then dip? Like, what happened? The eagle showed up, everyone's like, divine providence, and the eagle is like, oh, you guys totally misinterpreted that, but bye. I just needed to poop somewhere. I'm like, where'd it go? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where the eagle went, because nothing matters in Numenor. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, right? Like, it's just frustrating. It feels like it could be cool, right? Like, this is Isildur's home, and we know the role he's gonna play and how important it is. Isildur's probably the only character out of Numenor that I'm interested in, and it's because he got the hell out. He got the hell out of Numenor.
Right. Oh, man.
I get annoyed, as Nick pointed out, when they go for like some really cheesy lines every once in a while. He is no man. Like, God. You could be the Lord of the Rings. Like, jeez. Laying it on thick, guys. I think there are decisions like that really hold the show back from being really great. There are a couple of just like storytelling decisions that I wish that they had done differently. I know that the panoramic reveal of Eregion, when it according to Celebrimbor, everything's peaceful, right, in his perspective, but it's because of this trance that he's under. And you get that great panoramic of Sauron, right, where he's walking outside, and it goes from being the peaceful trance to chaos, right? And that is cool. It looked really cool. I wish that had happened differently, though, because the very next episode there's a neat detail that Celebrimbor catches, and it's the candles aren't changing, right? Like he marks them and they're not changing, and then he notices the mouse, right? And like how something's wrong, right? I wish we also, as the audience, thought that everything in Eregion was fine. And then for all of us together with Celebrimbor discover, oh my god, right? Like, and like, I think that would have been such a more effective way of telling that story, and for us to feel even worse for Celebrimbor, right? Because we're discovering that information with him, and for us as an audience to be even more scared of Sauron, right? Because he pulled one on us too.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
that's a cool idea.
There.
That seems like it would have been extremely difficult to pull off, though, too, right? In some ways, maybe.
I'm not sure. I think if you just like not reverse the scenes, but like if you just had that scene where Sauron walks around, if you just had that later, right? Like, or have Celebrimbor do that, right? Where he's like waking from the trance. I don't know. It was a really effective shot. I love it. I just wish that the story had been tweaked just a little bit, because it feels like there's a lot of plot movement on this show, but not a ton of character work. And that would have been a really awesome character moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it's a good show. There's a lot of passion in this show. That's awesome. It's a beautiful show. But yeah, some of the writing just kind of falls flat for me. Not all of it. God damn it, not all of it. The dwarves rule. Love the dwarves. And I'm excited to see what's going on with Galadriel and company. But
awesome.
I guess we'll get there next season.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I guess that'll do it for our review here. But before we go, Nick, I actually don't know if we talked about this yet. What are we covering next time?
Either put it on your list, add it to your list episode, or we might it might be time for another time travel draft.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. I don't know. We have to pick a category though for that. So
That's true. We finished time travel comedy. That'd be kind of cool to do secret time travel movie next.
yeah, that would. Maybe we'll do that. So, yeah, we'll discuss it. Maybe we'll do a time travel next
right.
week. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how this week shapes up. But
Yeah, we'll see how much time we actually have for that.
But follow us on Threads where you can find out what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube, please. Let us know in the comments what you think. And we're also on Instagram if you're there as well. And yeah, until next time.
May the review be with you.
Peace.